Counting calories as a business owner and frequent flyer is a ridiculous and unrealistic strategy when you're constantly having business meals, eating on planes, or grabbing food on the go. So in this video, I'm going to explain 2 major strategies that you can use to eliminate calorie counting out of your life for good, whilst burning fat, increasing your energy and focus, and your overall output from each day. So let's dive in. Ultimately, if you want to lose weight, you do have to be in a calorie deficit at some point to enable you to lose that fat. That's how you lose fat, by being in a calorie deficit. And when you start out and trying to lose fat, it is a good idea to have a rough basic understanding of the kinds of calories that are in the kind of foods that you've been eating up until this point, so that you have an understanding of what's led to you gaining that weight in the first place, but then also to give you an idea of the calories in the kinds of foods that you could be eating and adding into your lifestyle to enable you to lose that weight quickly and easily. So at the beginning, when I first start working with a client, if they're completely clueless when it comes to calories, I give them a bit of an education in terms of the kinds of calories that have been in the foods they've been eating up until that point, which is ultimately why they've gained the weight. But from then onwards, it's about equipping clients with tools that enable them to lose that weight without feeling hungry whilst they're eating out in restaurants and whilst they're on the go. When it comes to eating out in restaurants, there's a couple of different approaches you can take. You can take the restrictive approach, where you do restrict your calories in the restaurants and eat less fatty meals or potentially even salads. That's not something I like doing. And when I go out to a restaurant, I like to enjoy being in the restaurant. And especially if you're going to business dinners, it's probably something that you also want to do as well. You don't necessarily want to be restricting yourself and eating a salad-based meal and then telling everyone that you're on a diet. You just want to go along with the flow whilst you're there. So if that's the case, what you then want to think about is how can you rein in those calories, perhaps when you get home or at the end of a trip. So here are just a few ways to enable you to lose fat quickly and easily without needing to rely on counting calories. The first is to lead with a fibre-first lifestyle. So these days, everyone's obsessed with protein, and most people are probably getting way more protein than they actually need, whereas they're completely omitting or overlooking the value in fibre, which is 1, very important for your health and brings enormous health benefits. But 2, fibre fills you up on 0 or next to 0 calories. And just to put this in context, if you just imagine eating raw carrots, you could chew on raw carrots to the point that you're painfully full. And if you did that over the course of the day, you'd be stuffed the whole day, but you would almost certainly be nowhere near the amount of calories you burn each day, just because fibre is so filling, yet so low in calories. Carrots are just one example of foods that are high in fibre, but generally fruit, veg, nuts, seeds, unrefined grains are generally very high in fibre, which means that they can fill you up. And especially things like fruit and veg can be very high in fibre, very low in calories. It can leave you feeling full for hours. It's full of minerals and vitamins that are important for your general health and well-being, and can keep you below your daily calorie intake. Another strategy that worked for some people, including me, but not for everyone, is intermittent fasting. So when I first started trying to intermittent fast, I tried a diet called the 5-2 diet, where I would try and eat normally most days of the week, as in whatever I wanted to. And then what this book recommended was for 2 days of the week, eating around 600 calories if you were a bloke and 500 calories if you were a female in total per day for 2 days a week. And when I tried that, it just left me feeling absolutely terrible. I wasn't used to restricting my calories to such a degree, which meant I felt terrible for those 2 days. However, what that was for me was an entrance into the world of intermittent fasting. I then started trying daily intermittent fasting, where I started initially eating all of my calories in an 8-hour window, and then gradually got that window smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that I was eating 1 meal a day in roughly a 1-hour window. These days, what I do is some days I'll just have 1 meal in a day. Other days I'll eat in an 8-hour window. Other days I won't even intermittent fast at all. But intermittent fasting is an incredibly valuable tool where essentially for a lot of people, you can train yourself to just push that point back in the day where you start ingesting calories. And when you push it back long enough and your body adapts to the process, what happens is if you end up eating all of your calories in a much smaller window, you can minimize that hunger in the morning just from experience doing it, and also ingesting caffeine if you want, for example, coffee or tea. But then what happens is if you're eating all of your calories in a smaller window, for example, 1 or 2 meals, even if you eat until you're painfully full without even thinking about a fibre-first lifestyle within those 1 or 2 meals, it can still often be hard to get the calories to take you over your daily calorie expenditure, which will result in you putting on weight just from those 1 or 2 meals alone. Of course, if you try and do it, or if you're eating massive unhealthy meals, then you can still do this. But if you're eating more healthy meals, especially with fibre, you'd be amazed at just how few calories you can fill yourself up on and then leave yourself feeling full for the rest of the day. If you push back that starting window at which you break your fast in the day, and some benefits that I experience from intermittent fasting are: 1, I avoid that energy dip after having a big lunch that most people get. 2, it enables me to feel more focused in the morning and build more momentum right from the start in the morning, because I don't need to stop to have breakfast. So I just plow through the day until such point that I feel hungry, to the point that hunger is distracting me from my work, at which point I can break my fast and then relax and eat with more freedom knowing that because a load of hours in the day have already gone past already, if I have a big meal, it's going to leave me feeling full for a long time and take me closer to that point where I go to bed. And then that's a day with a lower total daily calorie intake. If you've never tried fasting before, the first time you try it, you're going to feel hungry. But the more experience you gain with it, the easier it becomes to push that window back further and further and further. I'm sure you've had days in your life before where you've been super busy and you just haven't had a chance to stop all day. And then it gets to the evening and you've not eaten all day and you may not be hungry, because what I often find is the longer I leave my fasting, if I'm intentional about it and I intentionally plow through the whole day by using my work as an excuse to not be distracted by food, which results in me getting more done, by just gradually pushing that threshold back during the day when you start to ingest your first calories, it's likely that you'll be amazed at just how high your energy levels are in the morning without you needing to think about food, and then just how much freedom and flexibility that gives you to eat out later on in the day at a business meal, or if you're having plain food, or as a last ditch, you're just grabbing some unhealthy food on the go. So just these two strategies alone, leading with a fibre-first lifestyle on the meals that you can control, and then testing intermittent fasting for yourself, being patient with it, not pushing yourself too hard to begin with, but just gradually starting to push that window at which you start to eat in the day back a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, you're going to give yourself so much more freedom and flexibility to eat out on the go, or on planes, or at business meals without having to worry about counting calories and restricting yourself whilst you're at a meal. I've been on the go the whole day today. I had some food earlier on. I didn't count the calories there. I'm certainly not counting the calories here in this restaurant. But I know that because I led with fibre earlier on in the day and I did a bit of intermittent fasting today as well, I've got the flexibility and the freedom now to eat whatever I want in this meal and almost certainly still be in a calorie deficit, which is going to lead to me burning fat, or at the very least not putting on fat from this lovely indulgent meal that I'm now going to enjoy. And if you're a business owner or frequent flyer and you want to drop 8 to 12 kilos of fat while skyrocketing your energy and your focus and your output from each day, then hit the link in the description, the Dopamine Warrior 16-week executive cut, and I'll work with you to implement this in your life. Don't be a DLB, take back control, become a Dopamine Warrior.